Right, it says recordings in progress. So over to you, Raelene.
Cool. So again, good morning, everyone. I thought I would, Kaz actually asked me a question a wee while ago, and because Kaz and I actually spent quite a bit of time together, I realised that maybe I haven't done this presentation for a while, so I thought I might revisit it. So actually these three pictures depict my lockdown quite well. I feel like Forrest Gump. I walk, I sit on my couch, and I craved for the day that I could actually get out and get myself a cup of coffee. For me, I grew up in Blenheim, a family of four. I have, my dad was an engineer in the Air Force, my mum was a primary school teacher, and my brother, he's been living over in the UK pretty much on and off since he was about 21, so I don't see a lot of my brother. When I was about 16, we were doing careers advice, and my girlfriend and I decided that we wanted to join the police. So the two of us trotted off down to the Blenheim police station and sat down with their recruiting officer, who was also our youth aid officer. And we said to him, look, we want to join the police. What do we need to do? And to his credit, he actually took us quite seriously. And he said, okay, guys, what I want you to do is think about 5 things that you want to achieve in your life, and come back and put them in order, come back and see me in about 3 weeks' time. So we did. And at the top of my list, I had travel. So with travel, I said, all right, then how are you going to achieve that? So we sat down, we put a plan together. I planned to leave New Zealand when I was 20. We put a budget in place, and I left within about 4 months of that plan that we did 4 years previously, and headed off overseas. So this was a bit of a map of my travels, which we played with a wee while ago. So I left at 20. I stayed overseas for 6 years, best years ever. Totally irresponsible, had a great time. And since then, we've travelled to about 63 countries. Rand, you would have been my best friend back then, but we actually didn't have anyone in the travel industry in those days. So we just did it on our own. Fabulous, and I can't wait to get back to it again one day. So when I did come back, I was 26, and I decided that I was still going to follow my dream and join the police. So I put my application in, which went through super fast. There had been some guys waiting over 2 years, and within 3 months of arriving back in New Zealand, I was accepted and off to Porirua Police College, where we spent 6 months doing our basic training. That photo on the top left is me at my graduation. Beautiful haircut, clearly needed another hairdresser. I went, when I was graduated, I went to the Lower Hutt police station doing traffic duty and frontline duties. And a couple of years later, I transferred to Blenheim. Very hard station to get to, but they knew that I was wanting to come home. So I got offered a position and took it up. And the photo on the left was a photo that was taken at the top of one of the hills in Blenheim. And it was the photo used on a History of New Zealand Policing book, the old and the new. And the guy on the horse is Ralph Gillespie, who happened to be the youth aid officer that I spoke to when I was 16 about joining the police. So that was a real privilege to have been able to work with him as well. In Blenheim, I had my daughter in 1997. My first day back, she was 6 months old. Went back the 1st of January 1998, and New Year's Day I was given a missing persons file, which was for Ben Smart and Olivia Hope. So my life turned upside down as of that date. They were really challenging times with a newborn baby, and we were working 12-hour days, 7 days a week for pretty much the next 3 months. So yeah, I've always lived by what doesn't break you makes you stronger. So they were tough times. I obviously met Colin in that time, and he coerced me up to Auckland. So I, excuse me, I transferred in the police up to Auckland to the Henderson police station, and it was right at the beginning of the intelligence side of policing. And I happened to have been in on the ground floor of that. So I was picked up as a crime analyst at the Henderson police station. I transferred a few years later when I took my first promotion to sergeant and became the district commander's strategic analyst. So that was all around looking at making sure that we were able to predict crime, looking at crime patterns and making sure that we had the right staff in the right place, doing the right things at the right time, which was an incredibly, it was a job that I really enjoyed. I was then promoted to senior sergeant, went over to Auckland City and worked on a lot of the national projects. And that put me into an acting inspector's role as Auckland's policing development manager. Really good times. We rolled out some of the biggest IT and the way the police operated during those 3 or 4 years, and it was really exciting to be part of it. I knew that there was a real gap in our family violence response, so I was asked if I would go over to the Auckland's family violence coordinator's role. So my position there was to manage the coordinated response with all our government and non-government agencies to make sure that our really vulnerable families were looked after. And part of that role, I went and worked in Rarotonga for 6 weeks of the year to go and work with the Rarotonga police and just help them with their response to domestic violence. And in conjunction with Rugby New Zealand and Steve Chu, I took out 21 rugby players for White Ribbon Day 1 year. They're really highly respected over there, and so we put the players through the schools and through the prisons just to talk about the message of domestic violence, that it's not okay. And of course I had a very young TJ Perenara with me, who will always be one of my faves. So I got to 21 years and decided that it was time for me to hand the reins over to someone younger. I needed to go and take on a new career that was just for me, and it was something that I'd always wanted to do. That cake was made by one of my colleagues, which was the most phenomenal cake ever, and it filled an entire table. And these two guys on the top of the picture, GP was my running partner for many, many years. And Nina was actually New Zealand's first undercover policewoman, and she had been my mentor through the police for many, many years. So 2 very, very special people in my life. And my housing started. So I had bought my first home, and the one on the top left was a house I built, and it was built in 1900. It was divided off into 3 flats, and I managed to live in one and rent 2 of them, and it was an absolute dog of a house. So we started the renovations on that, eventually sold it, and that's now a real luxury B&B in Blenheim. It's a beautiful old lady. And then I built my second house. I built it as cheaply as we could possibly build it, just to make money. I sold it to come to Auckland. I had to sack my real estate agent because he was absolutely useless, put up a private for sale sign. I had it sold in 2 days. And so maybe that was the beginning of my journey of real estate. And off I went to Auckland. And of course I came to Auckland for this man. We got married. So Colin's my soulmate and my workmate, of course. And it's lucky we get on incredibly well, because we've spent an awful lot of time together recently. And this is my family. So these guys are really special to me, obviously. So we've got 2 kids. In the top left-hand corner is Raelene, when she graduated last year. Bottom left-hand corner is my mum and dad, my cats, who are very special to me. Our 2 grandsons on the top, David and Christina. They were due to get married in 18 days in Napier, which is had to be cancelled as of yesterday, which was quite sad for them. They were forever hoping we could get out of Auckland. So that's now going to be on hold till next year. And Michael down the bottom, and his wife, Tony Ann. So when I left, when I left the police, I went through the process that I guess a lot of people go through when they're choosing an agency and a real estate agent to buy or sell a property. And I probably went through the same process when I was choosing an agency to work for as well. And the reasons why I chose Barfoot and Thompson was they are Auckland's largest real estate company. We do have 65 offices in Auckland with 1,700 agents. And we can buy and sell anywhere. And of course, my database was all over Auckland because it was all my policing staff. it was a trusted brand, 97 years in Auckland. You ask most people around New Zealand and they know who Barfoot and Thompson is, even though we don't operate out of Auckland. But it's still a very trusted brand. And of course, last year we did receive in London the Best Agency Award in the world, which is a real privilege to work for a company that has that holding. And we sell more properties than any other agency in Auckland, which means our agents have a greater database than anyone else to be able to try and sell your home. And then I looked at my 21 years of policing because I thought, what have I got to offer anyone to come and sell property? But all of the skills that I learned in policing are skills that we certainly use in real estate. You know, my negotiation skills, 21 years, I can get myself out of most predicaments in the police, has set me well for real estate. We're problem solvers. Everyone buying or selling has a problem, and our role is actually to put some solutions in place and smooth that path for them. Being a strong listener and good communication skills. Lack of communication is probably one of the highest complaints that real estate agents receive. So the one thing we do is just make sure that we are constantly in contact with our vendors to keep them well informed. If they're asking me questions, I feel like I've let them down because I haven't foreseen something coming up. And of course, honesty is a really big one. And of course, there's my career. Had a great career, loved it. It has been the best thing I ever did, 6.5 years, and I think I've smiled, except for under lockdown, for just about every time that I step outside my door to go and talk to people. So I just wanted, so that's pretty much me. I just wanted to give you a really quick rundown on the strength of Barfoot and Thompson during lockdown. Because we work for such a big company, they've made really strong investments into technology. So by the time we go into lockdown, we can really seamlessly pass all of our operations online. The auctions have continued through our Auctions Live platform. In September, we still sold 667 properties. As we got to the end of that 4th week, a lot of those properties were being bought unseen and of course unconditionally at auction. However, we have been running virtual viewings. So we had the technology and training put in place very, very quickly, where our owners, when they're in their own bubble, they would run the virtual viewing for us. It would be managed by the agent. And one of our agents said that they had 17 people on their virtual viewing. And everyone is able to do that from their own bubbles. So technology for us has been phenomenal, and it can continue business as usual. And so from here, as we talked about earlier, listing numbers still very, very low. For North Shore and Rodney, we're still experiencing about 40% less listings than we were based on this time last year. There is a level of desperation with our buyers out there, and because of that, the prices are holding. However, I did receive one of our directors' monthly reports last night, and there has started to show a slight drop in pricing. So maybe that pressure is just starting to come back a little bit. Interest rates are going to continue to rise, and lending is actually becoming a lot more challenging. A lot of our buyers, and I think Liam touched on it as well, that finance is actually starting to become quite tough. So my recommendation to anyone who's thinking about selling is, while we've got this pent-up anxiety with our buyers, this is a great time to be selling. I think once things settle down in Auckland, and maybe in the early new year, when people are a little bit more comfortable about where we're at, that's when we'll see an influx of listings coming on the market, which means prices will typically come back and they will come down. So right now is the right time to be selling. And that's me. Has anyone got any questions? How do I come back?
Yep.
I've got.
Yeah, just go to the bottom there again, Raelene, and you can stop share. Oh no, what is it at the top?
You go at the top. It's
Yep.
the one. Cool.
Yeah,
Well done.
right.
Any questions of Raelene?
Not so much a question from me, but more a comment, which is something you put up in the slides. And just go back a little bit. I spent 2 years in the UK dealing with the unemployed, going through a variety of skills they needed to present to different employers when they go in for interview. And one of the things a lot of people forget, and it also feeds into what Cheryl's doing at the moment, is that in a lot of jobs, you've got a lot of transferable skills that you develop. And once you were going through your presentation, I thought, yeah, this actually dovetails quite well with selling houses. And some people might think, well, they're completely different. But as you highlighted, there are quite a number of very, very pertinent transferable skills that you've developed over the years, which go well with what you're doing.
Yeah.
I just think people don't recognize what they've got.
No. And I know a lot of police really struggle when it's time for them to move on. You know, they think, well, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. But, you know, when you sit down and you break them down, we learn a lot in that job.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. So thank you for that, Raelene. And as always, we really enjoy the, sharing the personal and career journey, because it's who we are, and it gives us a better understanding of where you've come from and where you're going. So I really appreciate that. Well done. Thank you. Right.